Good morning. I'd like to bring the December 7th, 2022 Planning Advisory Commission meeting to order. The official start of this meeting is 9 a.m. Would you please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would, please silence or turn off your cell phones. Before we get started, I need to get the approval of our minutes. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the minutes? So moved. Ralph, all right. Can I get a second? Yes, sir. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty. Thanks. I remind those in the audience and those watching on TV that this is the first hearing of any rezoning, text change, or special exception request brought before us today. We will first hear a reading of the staff report for the case by planning staff and ask the applicant to provide a brief overview of the request. We will then give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak for or against that request or to inquire about said request. The commissioners will have any needed discussion on the case. Once a motion is made and seconded by the commission, a vote will take place and a recommendation will be rendered. The case will go back to the planning department for their independent recommendation. If a favorable recommendation is given, then the case is forwarded to the City Council with 2 independent recommendations. If the Planning Department makes a recommendation for denial, the applicant will have 10 days from the receipt of a letter stating the denial to notify the Clerk of Council that they are requesting to be placed on the City Council's agenda. The City Council of Columbus will hold a public meeting called the first reading. Said council shall consider the case, review Planning Advisory Commission and Planning Department recommendations, and hear discussions on the matter. Council will make a final decision at a second meeting called the second reading. All right. That brings us to our first case of the day, case REZN-11-22-2158, a request for a text amendment to amend the text of the Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO, in regards to condominiums and cryptocurrency mining. Can we please hear from staff? Okay.
Yes, sir. This is a request to amend the text of the UDO for various uses. Those uses are for condominium uses, as well as cryptocurrency mining, adding a definition to that, as well as one last one, and that would be storage of recreational vehicles, boats, and trailers. And then Director Will Johnson will comment on the remaining of that.
Sure.
Good morning.
Good morning.
REZN-11-22-2158. The first change is putting the definition of a condominium in the UDO. Condominiums are allowed as a use, but there's no definition. We recently discovered that. Don't know why it was not carried over from the 1984 zoning ordinance, but this is the definition from that ordinance, so we just want to carry it over and put it in the UDO.
All right, is there any questions from commissioners? All right, do we have a motion on the floor?
Well, we can do in all of them.
I'm sorry.
The second one is amend section 3.1.1 by adding banquet facilities and assembly halls as permitted uses in the Central Riverfront District zoning district. It's allowed in UPT, neighborhood commercial, and GC, but it's not allowed in the CRD. That was an oversight when we did the UDO, and we would like to add that into the Central Riverfront District.
Just a clarification, there are already businesses operating in that way with assembly halls and banquet facilities there?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, does anyone have a motion?
No, we still got it.
Oh, I thought that was another one.
Number 3, cryptocurrency mining. We currently have nothing in the ordinance for cryptocurrency mining, which is a nuisance use. However, we do have a definition of data processing that they could slide in here and try to hold over our heads to open a cryptocurrency mining operation, which has noise, pollution, and several other problems with it, especially when they locate near residential areas and dense commercial areas. So we're adding this in here. As a use, it has to be a special exception in a heavy manufacturing industrial area. It has to be a minimum of 750 feet from a residential dwelling units, institutional dwelling units, or residentially zoned properties. The sound limit emitted from this operation is measured at the property line shall not exceed 60 decibels. They cannot have cargo containers, semi-truck trailers, and other storage containers on the property. And mining operations shall take place in a permanent structure with a valid certificate of occupation. I don't know if anybody actually physically works there, but still we're gonna make them have 5 total parking spaces.
And so this would be a special exception use, so if a project were to be developed, people would still need to come before council to get approval to do that.
And they will, and we will, we're gonna go back and look at, we have the basic special exception. We have a separate special exception that we created for buildings, uses over 5,000 square feet in the NC district. That was before the UDO. And we'll probably create a third one for this that specifies certain certain things they have to hit to qualify. And of course, we're putting a definition in here in Chapter 13. The last thing I have at the request of the Codes Office is adding, we might want to use a different color after all, is adding a section E, a subsection E to 4.2.24 on storage locations for recreational vehicles, boats, and trailers. We do not want them in the right-of-way, i.e. parked in front of your house. So that's the point of that addition.
I do have probably a dumb question, but what are they mining for cryptocurrency?
You asking the wrong.
Does
John,
anybody know?
we had a high school class here, you could probably ask them, but I'm not the
I'm
one.
with you, okay.
That's it, Dirk.
All right. Have we got any other questions from commissioners? Anybody like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. King.
I'll be glad to make a motion in regards to REZN 1122-2158, request for a text amendment to amend the text of the Unified Development Ordinance as written. I make a motion that we approve it.
You got a second? All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right. It's unanimous. On to our next case. All right, our next case is REZN 1122-2066. A request to rezone 0.83 acres of land located, is that? 2184. Okay,
The next text amendment.
okay, I got you. I got those already marked down. All right, it's REZN 1122-2184, a request for a text amendment to amend the text of the Unified Development Ordinance in regards to short-term rentals.
Yes, sir. This is the text amendment to change the UDO 1122-2184. This is to revise the UDO to text of Chapter 4, Section 9 for short-term rentals, and the Director of Inspections and Code, Ryan Pruitt, will speak to that.
Good morning, Commissioners. As Mr. Renfro said, here are the text amendment regarding short-term rentals. Back in 2018, this ordinance was first put into place as short-term rentals, or most people call them Airbnbs or VRBOs, but short-term rentals is the official name. As they became more prevalent, the initial purpose of the ordinance in 2018 was really a method for the city to track the rentals and ensure that they were paying the appropriate taxes, including hotel motel tax. Since 2018, state law has changed, and now the websites such as Airbnb and VRBO are responsible for collecting those taxes, so there's no responsibility of the individual renters to collect those taxes, it's on those bigger websites. So the issues we've been having over the last several years with these short-term rentals, complaints we've been getting from citizens is in regards to the rentals being used as party houses and the proliferation of these rentals overtaking some of our neighborhoods in the city. So that's what these revisions are intended to do. I'll just kind of run through the highlights and then we can see if we have any questions. One of the changes is in section 4.9.6, which during the application process requires the operator of the short-term rental to notify their adjacent property owners that they intend to run a rental, as well as provide them with the appropriate contact information. That's one of the biggest complaints we get from the neighborhoods, is that they don't know who to call when there's an issue at one of these rentals. So this would alleviate that issue. We actually copied that requirement from Savannah. That's one of the requirements that they require for their rentals. In 4.9.7, paragraph D would require a sticker to be placed on the rental. This is an effort to help our police. They are the ones that respond to the issues at these rentals, because all the issues are happening on the weekends or at night when my staff isn't working. So the stickers would allow the police to easily identify that, hey, this is a rental, and that means I need to handle it this certain way. Right now when they respond, they think they're just, responding to any regular house party. So they kind of break it up and they don't document the issues at that rental, which prohibits us from potentially revoking somebody's license if they are a repeat offender. It also establishes, paragraph E establishes the maximum occupant load. F and G are just kind of additional clarifications that you shouldn't change the appearance of the dwelling, as well as that a minimum stay is 24 hours. We started seeing people trying to basically run an event center from a home, like rent it out for 2 hours and then in the afternoon rent it out for another 2 hours. That's not the intended use for these short-term rentals. And then probably the biggest change is section 4.9.10, which is a new section which establishes a cap of the number of short-term rentals that are permissible in each of the historic districts. So really the historic districts are the only neighborhoods that we're seeing a heavy concentration of these rentals, specifically the downtown historic district, as well as the Waracoba St. Elmo or the Park District are really the two heaviest. So we instituted these numbers are about 10% of the parcels is where those numbers come from. But this would be in an effort to prevent the neighborhoods from really turning into a commercial zone, being overrun with the rentals. One exception is owner-occupied rentals are excluded from the cap. So if you live in your house and you rent out your basement or you rent out your upstairs room, you would not be subject to the cap. And that's pretty much all of the changes, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from commissioners?
I have one. Do you have any idea what the percentage of these new total numbers we already have in rentals right now?
So in the downtown historic district, there's approximately 30 that are licensed and legally operating. There's another 15 to 20 that are currently not licensed, so they're operating illegally. But all of these numbers, the cap is over the number of legally operating rentals at this time.
Just for all of us, and since all these people are here, what is the process that someone goes through to be approved to be a licensed one?
So there's an application process that's spelled out in the ordinance. Again, it's pretty much identical from the existing ordinance, but they have to come to inspections and codes, complete an application, provide us all the information. They have to complete a background check. The property owner and if the owner is not going to be the agent, then the agent also has to complete a background check. Can't have any felonies or misdemeanors of moral turpitude is what the ordinance says within a certain time period. So once they pass all that, we issue the permit to them. We also complete an inspection. We send a building inspector out to the home to ensure it's got smoke detectors and it's in livable condition. Once all that's done, we issue the permit, and then they're required to get a business license from the finance department.
what are the penalties or citations for not operating legally?
So the ordinance spells out the minimum penalties, which is $500 for a first offense, $750 for a second, and $1,000 for a third offense.
I do have a question. How do you intend on enforcing this?
So that is a challenge. So we have, it falls under my code enforcement, which has 9 officers. So we handle it on a complaint basis right now, to where if somebody sets up shop without being properly licensed, people can call it in and we'll investigate and make a case. We do have a software that we get reports from monthly that provide us a listing of every short-term rental in town. And so, we can take that list and go make contact with owners and do what we need to do to bring people into compliance.
Is that list public?
It is, yeah, it would be public record because I have it. I had some staff turnover in my office. We also, I'm getting a new GIS technician, which I know we've talked about, but we also will create a map that's public facing that shows where all these short-term rentals are located.
So someone say, and I know I have one next door to a rental house, someone were, say, have an issue, they would call 911, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if there's an issue, noise violation or, a safety issue at night, certainly call 911 and get the police to respond. If it's, during the day and, you're just curious or wanting to find out if they're properly licensed, or if it is a rental next to you, you can call 311 and they would get you over to inspections and codes to take a look at it.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Thomas.
How you doing? You named 3 violations. What is it that when you actually put them out, you said 1, 2, and 3 fines. So what is the actual one that?
So the ordinance says if there's 3 violations or 3 convictions at a location, then we can pull their license.
Okay, after 3.
Yeah, and it's 3, and so that's why it's important for the police to know that they're responding to a Airbnb. A lot of times when they'll just issue warnings to people, but since it is a business being run, we really want to issue citations so we can get the 3 strikes and you're out, instead of just, because we issue warnings, that doesn't count. It's got to be 3 convictions.
Okay, now the person that's reporting them, is there a procedure that they have to go to court when this procedure takes place?
So that depends. If the officers are able to go to the property and the officer sees the violations themselves, then the officer can be the witness. But if there's, certain issues that the homeowner captures on their security cameras or they take pictures of, then sometimes we do need the neighboring property owners to come to court to provide that witness testimony.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I got a question. You know the time frame that the 15 to 20 have been operating without a license?
Some of them have been operating for a while. I mean, some of them pop up new, and frankly, I don't feel we've done a good enough job publicizing our licensing requirements, and that's a lot of people have an ignorance excuse, but some of them are LLCs that do this for a living, and they have multiple markets, and they're just trying to get around the law.
Thank you.
What is the city's recourse against, I mean, I understand that these fines are there for the ones that are licensed. What's the city's recourse against someone who's doing this illegally?
So it would be issuing the citations and getting them into court, and then we can, try to take some more action, like I said, with the police getting there. Ultimately, the problem we always run into is we don't necessarily want to punish the renters because they may not know they're renting an illegal Airbnb. But we can ultimately, we could force people to leave the premises and all of that.
And if there are no complaints about a location that's operating illegally, you just hope to find out about it through checking the lists you have every so often?
Yes, yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, is there a motion to?
And I do know that there's people in the audience, I don't know if any of them, we did get letters of support from the Historic District Preservation Society as well as the Waracoba St. Elmo Preservation Society.
Or is anybody in the audience like to speak for, this text amendment? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Verona Campbell, 716 First Avenue. That's on the block in between, just right down from Minnie's on First. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to speak to this. I was asked to attend for Robin Tremarchi, the president for HDPS. But I really wanted to ask some questions for myself. As a group, as the neighborhood, I would prefer if other people, if you wanted to see a show of hands of anybody who wanted to make a statement or anything. I don't know if people want to come up to the microphone, each and every one of them, but I do have a couple of questions. So I know that I have a concern about, currently we have around potentially 50, according to your estimate, of these businesses operating, I guess, on a cash basis for them to just, collect the money and, make a profit of it. So 50 is a pretty high percentage if you compare it to our basically 4 streets with 4 avenues with a couple of more. We've got Front and Bay, which is really not a residential area. But if you've lived in Columbus for a long time, you know that neighborhood used to be the place where there were tumbleweeds after the sun went down, and it was just a scary place. And I personally know a member of my family who had their hubcap stolen off of a van, and it's just not a place to be, to what it is today, which is a thriving choice residential neighborhood, I think. And so in the last 3 or 4 years on my street, for example, I had 10 children under 7 move in on my street. And it's so great, so wonderful, we have a neighborhood. So I would just ask you all to consider, when you're considering your vote, to consider that if it were you and you had small children, or your neighbors had small children, and you were buying this home and wanting to make that a place for your family where your children can be safe and play in the front yard, not necessarily locked in the backyard, would this be the kind of use that you would want? I mean, someone being able to buy a house right next to you and turning it to a party house where there's a party there. They only want it for 24 hours, and they just bring a bunch of people in and make a lot of noise. Alcohol is consumed. Who knows if safe behaviors are observed or if everyone's on their very best. It's contrary to building a family and having a happy family life. So I'm just asking you to consider that the people who live in this neighborhood, the Uptown, we put a lot into living there. We put a lot into these houses, which take twice what we bought them for to keep them up and rehab them. We're the neighborhood where when people come to visit Columbus and they go to Whitewater, or they go to one of our fantastic restaurants or music venues, they probably drive along in the little streets, in our neighborhood, say, is this a place I'd like to live? So I just ask you to help us help you be a community and be good neighbors to one another. Because just like there was something proposed, well, it's not approved, they'll have to come for special approval if they want to do such and so, whichever the last amendment was that we just talked about. That's the way it started out. Well, this isn't approved, but 10 years later, when someone wants to put 44 authorized short-term rentals into a residential area, it's a different story. 44 is still a really high number if it's right next door to you. So just please take that into consideration. I just want to put a face with the families that are there, and I thank you for your time. Oh, and there may be someone else who wants to address the police thing. Since I've taken so long, I'll excuse myself. Thank you.
Excuse me, anybody have any questions? Is anybody?
I do have another question of Mr. Pruitt. Say downtown Columbus has 100 houses. I don't know how many is down there. What percentage can be Airbnbs?
So in these historic districts, it's roughly 10%. The proposed caps, like for downtown historic district, we have 44 would be the maximum number of rentals. So that equates to there's approximately 440 parcels in that district. Again, Savannah, they currently have a 20% cap. In talking to their people that run this program for them, they expressed, that they wish they had gone lower. So 10% was, we felt was reasonable to, accommodate the people that have, these businesses and with the existing rentals we have, as well as try to protect the neighborhood.
So you were saying there was 44, there are 44 down there now, probably, or maybe more.
Yes, yeah,
So what
including
you
the
would do-
illegal ones.
Including the illegal ones.
Right, so the way the cap would work is if you have your permit, you can renew that every year to stay in the cap. If you don't have a permit and we hit that 44, then you won't be
You're
able
out.
to get a permit.
Yeah, I need to ask you a question. If you know they're illegal, why hadn't anything been done to stop them?
So we've been waiting on this. We didn't want to go rattle everybody's cage and get everybody to sign up before we instituted the cap. So that way, the ones that are operating illegally may miss out on their opportunity.
Thank you.
This is an opportunity to protect those neighborhoods, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So I want to hear it from you. Okay.
Is there anyone else like to speak for this? Yeah, you need to come to the. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Richard Bishop, 609 Broadway. Just a couple of follow-ups. I think I heard Ryan say that they were like 15 that were unlicensed that were operating now. I mean, what process could we go through to get those shut down ASAP if they're not licensed? And number two is the enforcement. I understand that the ordinance requires that if you're a resident, you make a call to the police department, and a property owner has 2 hours to get somebody there to respond. The question I have is that everybody in this room knows that the pressure that we have on our police department to respond to serious calls. In some instances, this may not be a serious call in the pecking order of what to get done. So it could go over and over again as a homeowner having to deal with this type of house party or whatever it might be and not get a good response from the police department. That's not a slap on the police department, it's just a fact. We know that they're understaffed. We know that their response times are going to be to high priority issues. So it seems like there may be an opportunity here to look at another way to respond to these rather than putting another responsibility on the police department. Because we all know that response is not going to be a top priority. We know that. So I just ask for some consideration on enforcement piece of it before we push this thing down the road too far. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for? Okay, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Good morning. My name is Fran Carpenter. I live at 738 Broadway. We've lived there for 7.5 years. And before I ask my question's of Ryan, but I did want to say, this is our home. It's not just an investment. This is where we live. This is where we make our home. This is our neighborhood. And we really want to have neighbors. When we moved there, our neighborhood got together once a month for dinner, and COVID kind of busted all that up. But we were a very supportive neighborhood. One of the reasons that our neighborhood families can live there is that we have a really vibrant neighborhood watch. And it's really important to know your neighbors to have a good neighborhood watch. Without the neighborhood watch, there used to be a lot of petty crime in the neighborhood. We don't have that anymore. People know not to come to our neighborhood. Everybody's got cameras and everybody's texting each other if something's going on in the neighborhood. But you have to know who belongs there and who doesn't for a neighborhood watch to really work. And so I would say that's one factor in trying to get our arms around the number of short-term vacation rentals that are in our neighborhood, is to keep that neighborhood watch effective so that we can live there in peace and security. My question does have to do with enforcement, and I just wonder, what is considered a violation? Now, I know a house party where there's a whole lot of noise and going on, but is being unlicensed a violation? And are they in violation every day that they're not licensed? And how are the fines levied? And that's my question.
All right, Mr. Pruitt?
Yes, so any ordinance violation would be considered a violation of this. If there's a noise ordinance, if one of the guests is parked inappropriately, could be considered a violation. If they have a party and there's trash all over the house, that would be an ordinance violation. Being unlicensed is also a violation. In the past, what we have done, our enforcement technique was more gentle, maybe to where we would get the owners and get them licensed, because that was really our only concern. We didn't have a cap to enforce. We didn't have, their only responsibility was to get licensed. With this in place, there won't be any of that. It will be, issuing citations for operating a business illegally.
Yes, Mr. Dudley?
Different question, just to get a handle on the numbers we're talking about. You said that people who rent out their individual rooms in dwellings they live in are not counted under this cap. Do you have a sense that in the historic district, there are a lot of people who do that also? Or is this more people doing it as just a business and investment and not using houses they live in?
A large majority of them, I would say, are the whole property is rented out, so they are not owner occupied. There are some that are owner occupied. Frankly, we don't have problems with that, because if you're renting out your basement, you're not going to let people have a big giant party down there. It's really the owner occupied ones we don't usually see a lot of problems with.
Thank you.
Follow up on that. Does that also include, there are a lot of, in Midtown and in downtown, a lot of little cottages in the backyard. If the owner is living in the main house, does that, what you're talking about, also include those?
So that's
going to come up.
That's a good question. Accessory dwellings, I know there are some that we have permitted in the past. Accessory dwellings are not intended to be able to be rented out. So in my opinion, if somebody has a cottage that they want to turn into a rental, we would not approve that permit.
Would not approve that as a short-term rental?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the audience like to speak in favor of this? Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
So my name is Suzanne Weidenhouse. I'm the chief appraiser for Muskogee County. And I have some issues with these short-term rentals with owner-occupied, allowing them without licensing per se for the owner-occupieds, because we have a frozen homestead in this community. And when they are leasing out their properties, that portion that is being leased is not subject to being frozen. So if we're not licensing them, we're not capturing it. That portion that should be subject to fair market value. The other issue that we have with these Airbnbs is they're required to be paying taxes on their personal property. That's all the furnishings. All of these units are furnished. They're supposed to be getting taxed on that. We're not, information is not coming to my office so that we can capture this. And so when we have all these illegally operating Airbnbs, they're not coming. And the other thing that I can tell you is that the more rentals you have in a community, the more you drive down your values. And it doesn't matter whether it's a short-term rental or a long-term rental. The communities and the neighborhoods that hold their value are the ones that are owner-occupied. And that's just basic appraisal rules. If you have a lot of turnover in a neighborhood, you're going to drive your values down. So while I know we've lowered the cap from the 20 to 10 that Savannah had, I would strongly recommend that that cap come down even further. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Pruitt.
If I can clarify one thing, the owner-occupied rentals are still required to be permitted and licensed. They just aren't subject to the cap. So, but they still are required to go through the permitting process and all of that. And it sounds like I can get with Ms. Weidenhouse and make sure we're transferring all the information that we have to her office to make sure she can do what she needs to.
Wouldn't that require another text amendment change, Mr. Renfro,
For what?
for the owner-occupied rentals?
It would not.
They would not?
So in the parts that talk about all short-term rentals are required on an annual basis to get a permit from my office. The only exception for the owner occupied is in the section 4.9.10 about the cap, to where they're excluded. So they're still required to get a permit and get licensed. They're just excluded from that cap.
Let me ask you a question. Still kind of confused. What can be done today about the people that don't have a license?
What do you mean?
I mean, if they don't have a license, why can't you go to, to them and let them know they can't do that? Or
No, we
whoever
can.
handles that?
Right, we can, and we do, like I said, right now, we pretty much operate on a complaint basis, to where if if there's one operating next to you and you call and say, hey, is this licensed, and it's not, we'll go out there and take enforcement
Okay,
action on those properties.
thank you.
Do the websites, Airbnb, VRBO, and others, do they require you to show some sort of license?
No, they do not. They're not very helpful, I guess, in, helping us ensure that the people advertising on their sites are operating legally.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Thomas?
What is the expansion of the license? How long does the license last?
So the permit is good for 12 months. So you'd have to come in every 12 months to get it renewed. And then the business license is on you got to get your new one by April of every year.
Okay, so you don't follow up once the year is up to make sure they got their license? You just leave it in their hands, or how do you do that part?
So in the past, we've treated them really like a certificate of occupancy, where they get it one time, and they don't have to renew it with us. They have to renew their business license every year. So if they fail to renew their business license, the business license office sends code enforcement a list of, every business in town that did not renew. And then we go out, and knock on doors and see if they're in violation or not.
Okay, so that's your procedure after the business license is not renewed, and then you all step in. Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
I got a question. If you knock on doors for the people that have a license, why can't you knock on doors for the people that don't have one?
So, again, we haven't done a proactive enforcement with this, strictly because we knew the cap was coming. So I didn't want to go get all 50 of the ones operating downtown licensed, so then they get in, before the cap gets in place. So we've been handling it strictly on a complaint basis, which is what we do for pretty much all of our code enforcement type issues. Is, we have somebody call in to our office to, let us know there's a problem, and then we go take a look at it.
So if I've got a house down there in Broadway and I'm, and I've got an Airbnb and there's no complaint and I don't have a license, I can just keep on keeping on then?
Yes, like I said, I do get a list.
Yeah, till
In the
they get
past,
out, yeah.
we have mailed out letters to people, letting them know, hey, you're operating illegally, you need to get licensed, and that did get some people in. If the cap were to be instituted, we could go take a more hardline approach on enforcement.
And so if you say there are about 30 legally operating now, and another 15 to 20 illegally, if we put in the cap that's 44, then some of those 15 to 20 would probably have to shut down once enforcement kicks in.
Correct.
So we could actually, I don't see any percentage in this document, but you say it's 10%. If we reduced it to 5%.
Yes, the number of the cap could be anything, whatever, city council ultimately decides or y'all want to recommend, could be set wherever. We came up and we originally were going to do a percentage of the parcels, but with replatting or rezoning, we'd have to recalculate that number every time. So that's why we went with a hard number.
Well, I agree with those that are out here that, yes, this cap is here, but with the illegals that are running, and, you grandfather the ones that are in now, and they're acting accordingly. according to this document, that's fine, but as they don't, you take them off. And, you know, I tend to agree with them. It's just, it's too high a number.
Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak forward? Yes, sir, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
My name is Chance Chancellor. I'm at 732 Broadway in the Historic District downtown. And I just want to say I would be also in favor in reducing the cap, because with there being the owner-occupied exception, it's more of a soft cap, because you don't know how many owner-occupieds you could end up with, and you could end up way above the intended level. I know 44 to me just feels, even though it's at 10%, feels like a lot. If I look around my neighborhood and the, you know, kind of 8 blocks or so that make up the historic district. And it could also, you could end up with clumping. You know, what if you are the one house on the block that you own, and then the 3 to your left and 3 to your right are short-term vacation rentals? And I know, speaking of Ryan, there were some issues in trying to prevent clumping, like, legally. So I think the best way to address that would be a lower cap, and, you know, just hope you don't get, you know, bad luck of the draw. I know that's kind of a bad way to say it, but you could end up with an entire block that is nothing but Airbnbs at 10%. So that's my thing. And then I just wanted to mention another reason why the 24-hour ordinance is there is we have had some issues with people renting by the hour, and I'll just say it was not for banquet halls. So that is, I don't want let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I support everything in here, and it is nice to be able to look around and know who your neighbors are, and, oh, those are the people that are just here for the day. They don't, you know, care about our neighborhood. I mean, I've been in college. I know what, you know, happens at Airbnbs when there's a football game or something for the weekend, or you're not there for the investment in the community. So the only question I would have, because it's been an issue before and other things, is a lot of these Airbnbs they're not run by a mom and pop operation. They're out of town LLCs that are coming in here, and they're just sucking our community out, packaging it up, taking their check, and they're making money off of our neighborhoods back. And Columbus never sees that money. They never see the investment. So is there any provision, how do you enforce this with out of town LLCs? Because I know a lot of your power kind of stops at the county line. Can you go, and they're not paying their fines, can you go and bolt it up and say, hey, listen, sorry, you know, you've had your chance, you're done?
So, like I said, out of town is a challenge. You know, a lot of the enforcement needs to come from the permitting process and ensuring that they have the proper agent, somebody that's going to be here, that's going to be responsive to us. And so we have a process in place to make sure the agent is at the inspection when we go do, you know, the inspection of the house, make sure so we can see it's a real person. We can call their phone, make sure it rings, all of that. So that's a big step up front. Ultimately, yes, if you're operating a business illegally, we can go shut you down. Again, the challenge we always face is somebody's renting this Airbnb and they're coming in for a military graduation. So we don't want to punish that person. So it is a challenge, but we would be able to take those extreme measures to keep it from operating.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody in this audience that's against this? Yes, Ms. Campbell, you want to come speak?
I just want to speak quickly to the ADU, the accessory dwelling unit question. I'm Verona Campbell. I live at 716 First Avenue, and I hold the AICP designation for professional planners, so I'm a city planner also. Accessory dwelling unit, according to my research, is a sign of a healthy neighborhood. It allows for mixed income individuals to live in one place as we gentrify and the houses in the historic district become more and more expensive, we hope, or, you know, maintain a healthy value. It allows people of lower incomes to also live in that community and put their children in those schools or go to those churches or walk to those stores. So accessory dwelling unit, and it's also good for people who have this giant house, say a widower or a widow lives there and it's too much house for them. They want to live in the accessory unit. They can rent out the front house and have income for themselves, but not have to uproot themselves to a completely new community and be allowed to stay in their home, basically. So the accessory dwelling unit, renting out part of your property where you live, is really something different. I asked Ryan, and he said the percentage was based off of parcels. So the only other thing I would ask you to consider is that parcels is every single parcel. Some are already commercial in our area. Some are attorney's offices. Some are apartment complexes. Some are churches. Some are workout facilities or businesses of other types. So we already have a restaurant is on the corner of my street. We already have a lot of commercial mixed in this community that is just really trying to get off the ground with their wings. So it's a heavy burden, as your tax assessor told you. The mixed use is a delicate balance, but a ton of rental in a neighborhood can just put a chokehold on it and kill it. So I think the choice is, do you support HTPS in its charter says that it supports residential infill in our neighborhood. And so I can for a fact state that that's the stance of the group. But I would ask you to consider, is that what the city wants to do, is to support residents of this neighborhood? Or every other classification of someone who wants to come in there to manipulate it and use it for their profit? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's against this? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
I'm John Stewart, 1608 Springer Street, and that is in the Maricopa St. Elmo Historic District, better known as Park District. I'm not going to say the Maricopa, it's too hard to say. All I can do is echo what has been said before. I can't add to it. It is, the Park District is a strong residential area. We would like to keep it that way. We're not opposed to business by any stretch of the imagination, but still, we live there. It's our home. We bought it as a place to live and as an investment too. Property values, that's a big deal for all of us. So the cap, yes, we'd like to see it lower too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Is any other more discussion among commissioners concerning this? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
I expect we're going to get a motion one way or another on this text. And I hope that whatever the motion is, that we figure out that we don't wind up in a situation where this is rejected and we go back to the status quo, because I would assume that for the people in the historic district who are opposed to this, that would be not having any cap, and having no enforcement mechanism would be worse than having a cap they think is too high. So if somebody is going to oppose this, I would hope they could propose different caps or ask the city to come back with different numbers or something.
Well, I was intended to make that motion. I mean, if we're ready. Yeah. Are we ready? You have any comments?
Is that a motion at 5%? Or is there
Well,
a provision in there?
What I wanted to do is, I'm going to challenge your department to enforce this thing. If it goes through council, understand we're a recommendation board here. We're not the final decision. But I'm going to recommend that we approve this, and we take that cap from 10% to 5%. And that's throughout the city. I mean, there's other areas besides these historic districts. And I think we need to really take a look at how many we get clumped into certain areas. So I'm making a motion, we approve it, and we lower the cap from 10% to 5%. And I challenge your department to enforce it and grandfather those that are already doing what they're supposed to be doing. And as they fall off, just knock them off. That's my That's my motion.
Can I just ask a quick question? 5% in.
Wait a minute, we got to have a second.
Yeah, we got
and
a
then you
motion.
can
Anybody
discuss.
want a second? Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry,
That's
Mr.
okay.
Baker.
5% in the downtown historic district. Are we all, if it's 5%, are we already over what would actually be 5%? Like, are we setting up something today where now you have to go enforce and randomly decide that these 10 are no longer legal Airbnbs?
So
Because
if-
that also doesn't seem fair.
Right, if the cap was set at approximately 5%, which would bring the number from 44 down to 22, we would exceed that with the number of legally licensed ones. So the ones currently operating over the cap would be allowed to continue to operate. So essentially, the ones that are legally.
For a year or?
For as long as they kept their permit, they would be able, since they have their license, as long as they keep the permit and the license in good standing, they would be able to operate forever. But no more would be, no new ones would be able to come online.
Well, I do have another question too. It could become part of the motion. Third violation, revocation of license permanently with no recourse.
Yeah, currently the ordinance on the third strike, we revoke it for up to 12 months.
I say permanent. If the same owner owns the house. Okay. And I'd like to add that to the motion, if that's okay.
Would anybody like to second that?
And I had one more question. You don't have any recourse to place a lien on these houses for someone not paying these penalties. Is that correct?
That would be correct. We'd have to issue a citation to go to court.
Okay, okay. It'd be better if you could just put a lien on the house, and then when they get ready to sell it, they have to pay it.
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
And I just have another clarification on the structure of this. These caps apply to certain neighborhoods. Does that mean that in other neighborhoods, there is no cap, or that no Airbnbs are allowed in neighborhoods not listed here?
So in the other parts of the city, short-term rentals are permitted uses. We just have not seen the concentration at this time. What we would need to do is, if we see a buildup in certain neighborhoods, would be to create specific districts for the short-term rentals to institute caps in those neighborhoods. Because we looked at, we got some feedback about, limiting them citywide, but if, we do 5% of every residential parcel in the city, that's still several thousand rentals, and they're still going to concentrate in these locations. So that's why we started here. And then if another neighborhood starts to see a lot of them, we can come back and add a cap to that area.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have a motion to put the cap at 5%, and after the third violation, their license.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah, revoke.
Does the city have any comment on the no appeal part of closing down after 3 violations? Are there legal issues with that?
I would have to refer that to Clifton or Lucy for that.
Okay, is that something that we could specifically draw to council's attention and draw to their attention before a council meeting?
Definitely.
Okay,
That's the purpose.
all right.
All right, I believe we have that motion on the floor. Would anybody like to second it? Specified. Our motion is to lower the cap to 5%. And for the existing people that have the license, after their third violation, their license is revoked permanently.
With the caveat,
Yeah, right, for anybody. Yeah, for anybody that has the license.
and with the caveat that if you are already licensed in the neighborhood and already over the cap, you are not randomly losing yours because this is 5%,
As long as you're in compliance.
as long as you're in compliance.
That's correct. All right. Would anybody like to second it? All right. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you. All right. That brings us to our next case, REZN 1122-2066. Y'all could please step outside. I apologize. We're on to our next case, REZN 1122-2066, a request to rezone .83 acres of land located at 1226 6th Avenue. Current zoning is light manufacturing industrial. Proposed zoning is uptown. The proposed use is office, business, and professional. Jack Hayes is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 7, Woodson. Could we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir. General land use is consistent for planning area D. The current land use designation is public institutional. The future is high-density mixed use. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 118 trips, up from 63 trips if used for commercial usage. The level of service will remain at a level A. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is UPT, to the south is LMI, to the east is LMI, to the west is LMI. 15 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls and or emails regarding this rezoning, and there's no additional information.
Is there any questions from commissioners in regards to the staff report? All right, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us an overview of your request?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Jack Hayes. I'm with G2 Commercial Real Estate based here in Columbus, Georgia. My business address is 5607 Whitesville Road, Columbus, Georgia. I'm here to represent the owners of what we call the former Columbus Depot, the old train station. It was previously the home of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, who has moved into the old YMCA building in downtown. As some of you know, this 6th Avenue 10th area is being revitalized, being recoined the phrase of what we call mid-city. Most of the parcels that you've seen redeveloped have been rezoned to UPT. You have Fetch Dog Park, Moe's Barbecue, Chattahoochee Brewery. You have the Swift Mill Loft development. You have Asperian office has been redone down there. Salt Life has moved down there, been condos. And so in order to utilize this property or any of those types of creative uses, it has to be the UPT or uptown zoning. Currently zoned as light manufacturing industrial. These uses are not permitted. So our goal today is to rezone the property to UPT so it can be utilized by commercial uses.
All right, any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? All right. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak for this request? Is there anybody else who'd like to speak against this request? All right. Would a commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. Baker.
When it comes to REZN 11-22-2066, a request to rezone .83 acres of land located at 1200 and 1226 6th Avenue. Proposed use is office, business, and professional. I propose that we accept this rezoning. It's consistent with land use around it.
All right, do we have a second? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Yes, sir, thank you. All right, our next case today is REZN 11-22-2067, a request to rezone .40 acres of land located at 1947 Winton Road. Current zoning is residential office. Proposed zoning is general commercial. Proposed use is market, package, and liquor store. Wesley Godwin is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 3, Huff. Can we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area D. The current land use designation is general commercial. The future is mixed use. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 153 trips, up from 23 trips if used for commercial use. The level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact, no buffer requirements, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is RO, to the south is RO, to the east is GC, to the west is RO. The property owner 30 property owners within 300 feet of the subject property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received 3 calls and or emails regarding this rezoning. Those calls were in opposition of this case. And there's no additional information.
Yes, Mr. Dudley.
What was the reason for the opposition?
The general opposition were just the type of traffic package stores and liquor stores generate, stating that there were other liquor stores that were within the area and that they didn't need another one that close. I did try to explain to them that this particular use was going to be a market or a high-end market. The liquor store is just the highest use of that classification, which is what inspections and codes would essentially write their certificate of occupancy for, and that's what we have to zone it as.
All right, any other questions from commissioners regarding the staff report? All right, would the applicant please come forward, state your, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. McCaskey.
You good? Hey, how many liquor stores is in the area?
That I'm not sure.
All right. Yes, Mr. Duffy.
I guess I have a more general question, and I don't know if this is for the city or for the applicant, but in that area, it looks like you've got, along that block or two, a lot of change. You have what used to be the Sunoco station that's now been closed and is being torn down, I assume to be replaced by something. And then you've got what was the Burger King building in the house. Is all this a trend? Is this one company looking to do this, or are these 3 separate and coincidental projects?
I think at this time, it's just 3 projects that just happen to be happening at the same time.
Okay, but depending on what changes we allow, we could see a lot of change in that block and a half or so.
For sure, yes, sir.
And what was the building there on this site being used for before? I should know because I drive past it all the time, but
That I'm not sure of. The applicant, I'm sure knows.
Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Chandler Riley with the Page Scranton Law Firm at 1111 Bay Avenue, 3rd floor. Here for the applicant. To your question, and do you have an auxiliary mic? I might use the overhead if that's possible. Do you have a mic I could use over there? I can show you pictures of what.
Behind the,
Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you.
it's right behind that tag right there.
Good morning. To your question, sir, about the current use, it is, or sorry, previous use, it was an Aflac building right next to Dinglewood, across from Aflac Tower. Here's a picture of it. I can show you here. I recognize it. Immediately next door to Dinglewood there.
it's not.
To Mr. Renfro's point, thank you all for your time this morning. Is it not on?
Testing.
There's another one right here, right behind that. Here, yeah, here's another.
Sounds better. All right, everybody hear me? Thank you. Yeah, to Mr. Renfro's point, we would call this property, what's planned for this property, more of a market. Now, a component of that will have alcohol sales, hence the classification in the planning department's report that says package and liquor store. But again, I'm here to represent the applicant, owner of the property, who is Mr. Drew Godwin. Mr. Godwin is from Columbus. He's a hometown guy. He's here with me today. He's a builder, so he knows how to construct a quality project. And he lives in the neighborhood. He lives in Midtown, so he's invested in seeing this thing be a quality project. They have engineers involved in this project, EMC Engineering Services, certainly one of the most well-respected engineering firms here in town. Again, the purpose of this rezoning is to rezone this property here on Winton Road. It's about 0.4 acres from a RO, residential office, to GC, general commercial. And it's right there next door to Dinglewood. Dinglewood's to the left there if you're looking at the building, and to the right is Eberhard Avenue. And it's currently zoned RO, as you can see from the map here. Zoom out just a little bit. The subject property there is highlighted, and it's currently zoned RO. To the left there, the east, you have a sliver of RO and then some GC property, and then to the right there across Eberhard is more GC property. And then around there, as you go back off of Winton Road, there's more RO as well as some multifamily residential one in the tan areas there. As you go up and down Winton Road, there's a lot of commercial property already in place there. As we stated, there's the gas station there, which is shown on the map here. That's currently being renovated to a nice new property. As you go further, you have the Burger King property, which I understand is being reincarnated into a new restaurant, the plans for it. In the past year, you have a lot more neighborhood commercial. Across the street here, you have some apartments as well as the Aflac Tower and the Aflac campus. So you have a lot of commercial property already in the area. Not looking to just plop something commercial right in the middle of what's, just purely residential. Now this project is going to be developed by, as I mentioned, Drew Godwin, his wife Liz Godwin, and they're also partnering with another couple, Johnson and Crystal Trawick. The Trawicks are here as well with Mr. Godwin. All of them live in Midtown. They're residents of the area, and again, they're all invested and excited to see this area be elevated into a nice development. The plan is to create a market called Midtown Provisions. Within Midtown Provisions, there'll be significant space for high-end selections of meats, curated foods, gifts, products brought in by small business owners in the community to be sold there. In addition to the market, they'll also carry a wide variety of top-shelf spirits, beer and wine that can go along with the food selections made by the customers as they come in there. The thought is kind of to provide everything that clients might need for, say, a family gathering or a dinner party or a holiday event. They anticipate just, early stages, overall sales to be comprised of about maybe 30 to 40% the market side and 60 to 70 of the alcohol side. That could change and fluctuate depending on how the sales go. But it's also, it's looking to be just purely a high-end market is what it is, really. It wants to attract local families, local professionals, folks coming to and from their jobs who want to get some food on the way home for their families. Those looking to shop at Midtown Provisions would be looking to get some meats, some pre-prepared dinner, maybe a gift for someone, and maybe some drinks to go along with their dinner as they're heading that way. It's going to be viewed more of a destination for these types of goods, not necessarily just a convenience store. And to that end, while we're talking about what it's going to sell, which will be nice products, it's also important to note what it will not sell. It will not sell cigarettes. It will not sell lottery tickets. It's not going to sell anything that would promote or bring in some unsafe patronage or promote, unwanted foot traffic. Safety and cleanliness are a top priority of these folks. As I mentioned, they live in the area. This store is going to be their second home. They want to be the neighbors. They are the neighbors. They want to continue to be the neighbors of those living around there. Really, as I've talked to them, they said you could think of it almost as a mini Fresh Market or a mini Whole Foods right there, kind of comprised right there in that neighborhood on a much smaller scale, but providing good, nice quality products. As far as operating the business hours, at this point, they foresee maybe 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. In all honesty, those could be scaled back once they see the real demand hours there, but not going to be something operated late into the night by any means. Again, folks kind of on their way to and from work or home, stopping in to buy what they need. They've, as I mentioned, safety and cleanliness and a well-kept environment are at the forefront of these owners and developers' minds. They have plans to be proactive. In fact, even they're anticipating having maybe someone of security nature on staff that would discourage any foot traffic or unsafe folks from coming around or hanging around or loitering. They don't want any loitering. I know there's a back alley there behind that runs behind Dinglewood and the vegetarian restaurant there. They want to make sure that stays clean and safe. There's plenty of ample parking there on the side of the building, so they'll have off-street parking safe for the patrons that are coming and going. Again, everyone involved in bringing this vision to life lives in the area, they're invested in it, and they want to see it do well. They're going to be spending a lot of time there. They're going to be coming and going, but really it's going to be a second home for them. So they want to see it done well. It's not going to be done up with a bunch of alcohol signs or anything. The building, as you saw it there, while it might have a couple of aesthetic changes, it's not going to be changed and not going to have any unwanted or distracting signs or anything like that. It's basically going to look like that with maybe some minimum signage to say Midtown Provisions. As far as the property itself and what's there, it's already serviced by all necessary public facilities, services, and utilities. So it won't have any adverse impact on the city or the city infrastructure. We heard maybe an increase in traffic count, but not very much, and it'll maintain the level of service at a B level of service, which is a very good and high level of service for traffic. It will have a very positive impact, though, economic-wise on the city. You're going to have jobs created for the build-out. You're going to have jobs created by construction, subs, electricians, you name it, as they build it out, as well as permanent jobs. Once this market's in place, there'll be employees, of course, working there. Plus, you're going to take what's a sterile office building that's now become vacant and activate it and make it a vibrant neighborhood market and gathering place for these folks that live around there and the folks that also seek it as a destination. It'll have a significant and nice substantial increase in ad valorem taxes for the city. Not to mention, as you could anticipate with the sale of products there, a nice increase in sales tax for the city as well. The owners reached out to several surrounding neighbors and stakeholders before getting to this stage to discuss it and let folks know what was coming down the line. They spoke to the owner of Dinglewood Pharmacy, Terry Hurley. They spoke to the president and the board members of Midtown Inc., who of course has purview over that area. Had a nice meeting with Bruce Huff, the counselor for this district. All these folks I've mentioned were highly in favor of this development once they heard the kind of project that's anticipated here. Now it's interesting to note, I mentioned what's not going to be sold there. It's not just something they're mentioning and passing and verbally talking about. When they explained, and they met with Aflac as well, of course, they purchased this property from Aflac. When they met with the folks at Aflac and explained their vision and what they intended to be there, they wanted to make sure that it was going to stay that way. So what you're looking at here are restrictive covenants that were placed into the deed when they purchased the property from Aflac. Now, these were in the deed. It's recorded in the county property records, and they run with the land. So this applies to the current owners as well as any future owners or any tenants or anybody that might lease the property. So what you see there is that the property cannot be used for the sale of cigarettes, lottery tickets, or the operation of a tattoo parlor, a vape shop, massage parlor, gas station, or adult novelty shop. It also cannot be used to compete with Aflac. Smart on Aflac's part. And number 3, it also says that if it's sold or leased to a third party, that new party cannot operate a package store. So this sale of these spirits and alcohol is limited to this owner because they know this owner has good plans and will do a high-end quality establishment there for the neighborhood and for the community. So these restrictive covenants, again, run with the land. They're there permanently. And they ensure that these current owners who have the right interests in mind will maintain a high-end quality establishment there. So we believe that this rezoning request meets all the requirements for rezoning. All the public facilities and infrastructure are already in place, no adverse effect to what's already in place. We believe this development will be a real benefit to the community. It'll create jobs, create tax revenue, and it's going to be done in a high-end manner, and it's going to activate what's now a vacant parcel of property into a nice community gathering spot, selling nice products for the community and be a destination for those in and around the community. So we just ask that you would recommend approval to City Council to allow this to go forward.
All right, any questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Baker.
Chandler, the current driveway is on the side street. Is that what they intend to keep? Yeah.
They're on Eberhart?
Yeah. It's a lot slower street than Winton Road. That's good.
I do believe so. That's right. Yeah. So it's right here on the side of Eberhart. Correct. Yeah.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Oh, yes, Dr. McCaskey.
Sir, will it be a walk-in? Will it have a drive-through, come in? How will it go as far as that?
I understand it to be walk-in only, I believe. Is that right, owners?
We're right now walk-in, we're trying to make possibly add a drive-through if it's allowed, but walk-in.
Thank you.
Potential for it, yeah, thank you.
All right. Does anybody in the audience like to speak for this request? Does anybody in the audience like to speak against this request? All right. Is there any other discussion among, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't see you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hey, good morning. I'm Lindsay Holmquist, 1192 Monroe Avenue. I live on the property right there on the corner of that alleyway. We already experience a high number of foot traffic there. Luckily, whenever the Sunoco closed, it limited the hours, because it was a 24-hour establishment. It limited the hours that we see people up and down that alley. But I do have concerns. We finally feel comfortable going into our front yard. We purchased the home in 2021 without realizing the volume of personnel that would be going up and down that alleyway. We finally feel comfortable in our front yard with our kid and our other one on our way. So I just have concerns about how much foot traffic, and if in fact that there is like a drive-through put in there, how much traffic is going to, because that is a one-way alley, how much traffic is that going to bring down Monroe through the alley and then around the building? So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Dudley?
Just to make sure I understand, when you were talking about walk-up or traffic as opposed to drive-through, you mean people would park in the parking lot and walk in to get in that way, not that people from all around the neighborhood would be just walking in?
Correct. We don't anticipate a lot of local foot traffic coming into there unless you're maybe walking up in the neighborhood by the park and you just want to walk in and just want to exercise. We're not gonna have small, tiny sports, anything like that facilitate this.
All righty. Yes, Ms. Weekly?
I just have a question of the days and the hours of operation.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. As of now, it's anticipated as hours of potentially 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, once, and that's sort of a maximum, just to be fully transparent. They anticipate most likely that could be shrunk down to closing earlier, maybe opening later. But just as a opening sort of thought, that's where they're leaning towards. As far as days of the week, potentially 7 days a week, but of course, there's limitations on Sunday of when certain things can be sold, of course. But at this point, sort of keeping their options open on that.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Brown?
Okay, so you will be closing early on Sundays, or 9 to 9 on Sundays and Saturdays also?
It's kind of to be determined, but again, as sort of the max operation hours would be 9 p.m. But again, anticipate that probably getting scaled back.
Okay, 9, 7 days a week?
Well, potentially. It's hard to say at this point.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Don't anticipate meetings, so not, that we
Yeah.
had in there to leave us some option, but we really anticipate closing probably closer to 7 or 8.
Okay. I know there's another restaurant there, and they're closed on Fridays and Saturdays. And so I know they're right behind where you're going to be. And I know there's a lot of traffic. I go there, there's a lot of traffic there. I do know. That's why I was wondering your weekend menu time. Thank you.
Yeah. The Country Life Restaurant right behind there is a great establishment, and look to work with them on that, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right. Would a commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. King?
I'll be happy to. With regards to REZN 1122-2068, a request to rezone .35 acres land located, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. REZN 1122-2067. We haven't had this many cases in a long time. This is a request to rezone .40 acres of land located at 1947 Winton Road. Current zoning is RO. Proposed zoning is GC. Proposed use is market. Package and liquor store. Wesley Godwin's applicant. I make a motion that this is compatible with existing land uses, and I make a motion to approve.
We got a second? Second. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Thank you. All right. On on to our next case, REZN 1122-2068. A request to rezone 0.35 acres of land located at 8223 Cooper Creek Road. Current zoning is residential office. Proposed zoning is single-family residential 1. The proposed use is single-family dwelling. Bernard Jones is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 6, Allen. Can we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area A. The current land use designation is rural residential. The future is single-family residential. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual trips will decrease to 10 trips, down from 20 trips if used, and that should be for residential use. The level of service will remain at a level B. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of the CCG for residential usage. There'll be no school impact. The buffer requirements are the site shall include a Category A buffer along all property lines bordered by the NC zoning district. Those three options on a Category A are 5 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet. 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, or 20 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Benham recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is NC, to the south is SFR1, to the east is SFR1, to the west is RO. 15 property owners within 300 feet of the subject property were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls and or emails regarding this rezoning, and there's no additional information.
Any questions from commissioners regarding the staff report?
I do have a question. So there's a Category A buffer required on SFR? Or is that on the NC?
It's on the NC, which at this point I would assume that he's just going to use it as an undisturbed natural buffer, so it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Was any other questions among commissioners? All right, will the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us a brief overview of your request?
I'm sorry, I have a little hearing difficulty, so I hope you appreciate that. But when we bought the property, 8215 Cooper Creek last January, we saw this little strip on the north side that was for sale. So we thought that would be an additional buffer for what we bought, and what we wanted to do was to combine the two lots together to make one and have the same zoning, the same tax assessment and everything for that. So this is the reason we applied to rezone that. We didn't realize that we had to go through the zoning board. The surveyor sent it to the office, got it all approved for combining it, and then we found out that the zoning didn't fit. So this is why we had to redo it and send it through the planning commission.
Sir, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Bernard Jones, 8215 Cooper Creek Road, Columbus 31909.
Thank you.
Yes, and could you tell us if you're planning to build on that section of land?
We don't intend to make any improvements on it except to clean it up and fix it so they can be mowed and maintained, and possibly an extended garden patch up there. Make a beautiful place for about a quarter of an acre Silver Queen corn patch.
Oh, yeah.
So we may do that, but we have no immediate plans for any further development.
Yes, any other questions from commissioners? Okay, you might like to
We
make-
do,
Excuse me.
we have engaged in raising monarch butterflies, the endangered species of butterflies, and we intend to expand that so there will be some nectar-producing plants planted up there as well. This past year, just a haphazard way, we just got there and we're not completely organized yet, but we were able to raise and release 155 this past fall. So
Wow, that's
we really
nice.
enjoyed doing that, and I hope it helps the environment.
Yes, sir, thank you. Would a commissioner like to make a motion on this? Yes, Ms. Weekly?
I'd like to make a motion to approve rezoning net case 11222068. Request to rezone 0.35 acres of land located at 8223 Cooper Creek Road from RO to SFR1. General land use of this property is consistent with surrounding area.
Motion, would like to make a second? Yes, Mr. Baker. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty, thank you.
Thank you all very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, that moves us to our next case. REZN 1122-2069, a request to rezone 1.7 acres of land located at 4030 Veterans Court. Current zoning is residential office. Proposed zoning is general commercial. The proposed use is an auto truck paint and body shop. John Rasmussen is the applicant. The property is located in Council District 2, Davis. Could we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir. The general land use is consistent for planning area A. The current land use designation is general commercial. The future is general commercial. It is compatible with existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 123 trips, up from 101 trips if used for commercial usage. The level of service will remain at a level C. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. No school impact, no buffer requirement, no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is RO, to the south is GC, to the east is RO, to the west is GC. 10 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. The planning department received no calls and or emails regarding the rezoning, and there's no additional information.
Is any questions for the commissioners with regards to the staff report? Okay, would the applicant state their name and address for the record?
Yes, Scott Boyce, Woodruff Brokerage Company here in Columbus, 3580 Massey Lane in the Old Town Development where our office is. I'm speaking today on behalf of my client and the applicant, Joe Hudson Collision Center, to rezone this property to GC General Commercial. Joe Hudson is a regional reputable firm. They have about 50 or 60 locations in the state surrounding us. This will be their second location in Columbus, Georgia. We built one about 3 or 4 years ago in East Columbus on Milgen Court and just opened one up in Phoenix City on 280 near the Chick-fil-A. The properties on Veterans Court, there are multiple parcels that are already zoned GC General Commercial, as are multiple parcels, as you know, up and down Veterans Parkway. It's heavy commercial, hotels, fast food restaurants, and seated restaurants and retail centers. We are consistent with the uses around Veterans Court. We are compatible and will work with the future land use map. This property is well served by all city services and will not have a negative impact in the area. Therefore, we respectfully request that you approve this rezoning to GC General Commercial.
Okay, is there any questions for the applicant? Yes, Mr. Dudley.
I don't know if this is for the applicant or the city, but there is a big apartment complex that is either being finished up or recently finished right across. They have not had any comments or concerns?
They have not, no, sir.
Okay. And they were notified?
They were, yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, any other questions? Mr. Baker? All right. Would the counselor like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve REZN 11-22-2069, a request to rezone 1.78 acres of land located at 4030 Veterans Court, current zoning RO, proposed GC.
We might like to make this second. Yep. All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, all those against? Okay. All right, thank you. That brings us to our final case of the day. REZN 1122-2070, a request to rezone 0.18 acres of land located at 6330 Lynn Ridge Avenue. Current zoning is single-family residential 3. Proposed zoning is residential office with conditions. The proposed use is office, business, and professional. Columbus Botanical Gardens is the applicant. This property is located in Council District 5, Crab. Could we please hear from staff?
Yes, sir. General land use is inconsistent for planning area A. The current land use designation is multifamily. The future land use is single-family residential. It is compatible with the existing land uses. The property does not lie within the floodway and floodplain area. The developer will need an approved drainage plan prior to issuance of a site development permit if a permit is required. Property is served by all city services. Average annual daily trips will increase to 10 trips, up from 9 trips if used for commercial usage. The level of service will remain at a level C. The site shall meet the codes and regulations of CCG for commercial usage. There'll be no school impact. The site shall include a Category C buffer along all property lines bordered by the SFR3 zoning district. The 3 options under Category C are 20 feet with a certain amount of canopy trees, understory trees, shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, 10 feet with a certain amount of shrubs, ornamental grasses per 100 linear feet, and a wood fence or masonry wall, or 30 feet undisturbed natural buffer. There's no Fort Benning recommendation, no DRI recommendation. The surrounding zoning to the north is SFR3, to the south is SFR3, to the east is SFR3, to the west is SFR3. 20 property owners within 300 feet of the subject properties were notified of the rezoning request. We received 1 call. It was an inquiry about what was going on there, and that was explained, and they didn't have a problem with it. There's no responses in approval or opposition. As far as the additional information, I will read off the conditions that we have set for this piece of property. Excuse me. The proposed zoning classification will be RO residential office with conditions, and those will be: number 1, office, business, and professional only permitted. Number 2, hours of operation limited to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Number 3, reduced minimum lot width to 50 feet. Number 4, reduced minimum lot size to 8,000 square feet. Number 5, no dumpster shall be permitted. Number 6, property owners shall not alter the structure. Said structure and property shall remain in appearance as a single-family structure. Number 7, only 4 parking spots shall be permitted. Number 8, no parking shall be permitted in the front yard. Number 9, no business signage or lettering shall be permitted. And number 6, a wood fence shall be placed along, and it says all property lines, but it should read as both side properties and the rear property.
Yes, Mr. Dillon.
Just a question about the no signage. This is going to be an admin office for the Botanical Gardens?
That's correct.
But they can't have any sign saying people wanting to come to the Botanical Gardens admin office, this is it?
It is my understanding that they just need this spot for office space. They're not planning on having anyone come here to meet or anything like that. That would all be handled at the Botanical Gardens itself. So
this is more of a back office thing?
It really is. We've spoken with the owner, and they agree to all of these conditions to hopefully get it rezoned.
And does the no signs policy preclude them from having a sign on the door that's like on the exterior door that just says, I mean, is this a no freestanding signs?
Yes, that's what we're referencing, is just a freestanding sign in the front yard. If they wanted to have a sign on the front door, that would be perfectly reasonable.
Any other questions among commissioners? Would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and give us a brief overview of your said request?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Austin Gibson. I'm an attorney at Page Scranton. Our address is 1111 Bay Avenue, 3rd floor. I'll be brief. I know we've had a little bit of a marathon, and I'm excited to get to do that at council twice as well with all these other ones too. But as you can see, this is a rezoning of 6330 Windridge Avenue. I represent the Botanical Gardens. All right, and so this is a site plan sort of proposal that I pulled off the internet. I understand from Ms. Quinones, who's here with me, she's the executive director of the Botanical Gardens. This isn't actually, what it looks like now, or maybe even what it looks like in the future. But I just included to give you a general overview of what it is we're looking at. The Botanical Gardens is obviously the colored portion here, and then the property to rezone is down there in the corner there. So just so you can kind of orient yourself. And just real quick on the Botanical Gardens, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Botanical Gardens and what they do. Primarily they offer a setting for, people to have special events and take photographs and things. Like I know I took prom pictures in high school, however many years ago there. And then they also do certain like educational and horticultural seminars and things like that for the community. And so this particular property on Windridge Avenue, and you can see Windridge kind of running north to south, at least in this picture here. And so here's the property. And I know it's one of those things when Mr. Renfro read the staff report, he said, SFR, north, south, east, and west, and it, sounds very, very bad for our chances of rezoning. But when you look at the actual uses, these properties are zoned single family, but really we're talking about a church, 2 churches, a school, and then there is a single family property in between the gardens and this property to be rezoned. So while the properties are all zoned SFR, the actual uses on the ground there aren't necessarily all single family residential uses. And then, so this is our site plan here. It's small and a little difficult to read, but you can see we just have a very small single-family residential house right here in the front that the Botanical Gardens purchased a little while back. And it, to be frank, it was in very bad shape when we bought it. And the intent is to do some, obviously we're not going to change the structural integrity of the house. So for all intents and purposes, it'll still look like a residential property. But on the inside, we're going to do some remodeling, and we'll do some revamping of the outsides as well and add the fencing that Mr. Renfro talked about. So there won't be an issue there. We are going to be able to meet all the buffering requirements. And as far as, it's a little bit of a situation where it's round peg, square hole type thing a little bit. And so that's why we've worked with Mr. Renfro in the planning department to try to get all these conditions in place to try to make sure that, if we are going to do a development that's in this area, that's in a residential area, of course, that we do it in a way that's not going to disturb our neighbors, and we're going to do it in the least intrusive way possible. And so that's what we're attempting to do. We've talked with all of our neighbors, and obviously they got the notice from the planning department, and no one has had any issues with it, at least to our knowledge. As far as hours of operation and things of that nature, it is going to be strictly back office. Any public-facing meetings, positions, events, anything like that, that's all going to happen at the Botanical Gardens. So our folks are strictly going to be parking here so they can sit in front of their computers and phones and work. And so if they have any meetings or anything like that, they're going to go to the Botanical Gardens to have those meetings. So there won't be any public traffic coming to and from this building. I'm not positive about this, but there may be FedEx deliveries or something like that. And so that's why having that sign on the door, like someone mentioned, would be helpful, and I think allowed within that condition. But otherwise, there's no real issues. And then I just wanted to pop up here. I pulled this from the zoning ordinance, and this is just the requirements for residential zoning that's going to be used for non-residential purposes. And I think this rezoning meets that, because especially the fourth year, centers of related uses such as medical, hospital, institutional, academic centers. Now, I know the Botanical Gardens only owns the northern portion of this property, but they're growing and expanding on their property, and they're also working with these other facilities. I mean, presumably there's field trips with the school, and for certain events and things, we're partnering with the churches and using that for vehicles and things like that. So that whole area, on some occasions is being used for Botanical Gardens purposes and things like that. And the Botanical Gardens has historically been a good neighbor to these folks, and I think you see that by the fact that none of these folks have really opposed this rezoning, at least at this point. We'd be happy to answer any questions you all have. Just let us know.
Any questions among commissioners? All right, would Commissioner like to make a motion? Yes, Mr. Baker.
I will. When it comes to REZN 11-22-2070, a request to rezone .18 acres of land located at 6330 Lynn Ridge Avenue. Current rezoning is SFR 3. Proposed rezoning is RO with conditions. I suggest that we accept this with the conditions, even though it is inconsistent with the land use around it.
All right. Is there a second? Yes, Ms. Baker. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All righty. Thank you very much,
Thank you all
sir.
so much.
We have some new business here. I think we have to approve the meeting dates and application deadlines for 2023. Is that correct?
We do. I thought we were going to have one more meeting this year, but we don't. This is the last one, so I had to sneak this in at the last second yesterday. So this is the scheduled agenda for next year. Hope everybody had a chance just to kind of look at it. It's the same thing that it's been always been, the first and third Wednesday throughout the year. There are a couple of application deadlines that are set to Tuesday due to Monday holidays. The only notable exclusion from PAT meeting dates is the July 4th week meeting, but other than that, they're all there.
All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve these? Yes, sir. So moved, all right. Second, thank you. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you. Would the commissioner like to make a motion to adjourn? All right. We are adjourned.
Good work, John.